More about the impact of China's rate cuts and the gaming sector in particular. Zach Waring joins us, equity analyst at CFRA, with a fresh price target on Wynn, joining a few other analysts on the street that have gotten more positive after this week's news. Zach, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate a Friday chat. So walk me through the price target and how you're thinking about China's stimulus as an impact on Wynn, gambling, et cetera.
Yeah, so Wynn is trading at a pretty low multiple in terms of EBITDA, forward EBITDA to EV. So we think that before the news, we like the stock. Maybe we like it a little bit more here, but it does show you that the Chinese economy is not doing as great as people thought it would be at this point.
The fact that Wynn's been under such pressure, what's macro? What is specific to the gambling sector? Are there any restraints? Are there any holdups right now from the government on the high rollers, junkets, et cetera? I mean, is there something else beyond just the macro that's playing a role?
No, we think it's mostly macro. We think, we had a lot of pull forward demand there. After the pandemic, we had really incredible run for some of these companies. And then when the announcement of the reopening of China, you had an even bigger run for some of the companies that are exposed there. And I think, just we're in a kind of a period of holding until the recent news. You've seen a pretty big pop here in the recent days. So, we do think there's a lot going well for Wynn. We do like their placement, maybe better than a Las Vegas Sands, just because they have exposure to the U.S. as well, whereas Las Vegas Sands is really strictly Asia. We like Wynn because we think, U.S. is stable now. But they'll benefit where they get about 50% of their EBITDA comes from China and Macau. So we think they'll benefit pretty nicely if this stimulus does help the economy there.
Okay. How do you measure that? Is it just are they going to give us updates in between earnings, or do we have to wait? I mean, they'll generally tell us kind of if things pick up speed, right?
Yeah, so you get news, you get travel news out of Macau, which was actually surprisingly high in August. You saw the first eclipse of 2019 levels in August, which was a surprise because the trends recently in summer, June and July, were around 85% of visitation compared to 2019, and then August was just about 1% higher than 2019 levels. So you saw a little pickup in August, which was interesting. We'll get that data in a couple of weeks for September. And then you start having some of these casino and gaming companies report in late October. So, I think there's a little bit of news flow, between now and then. But if they do see some significant improvement in the next few weeks, they probably will come out and pre-announce some of these quarters.
Okay. Went up 7%. So when you look at the earnings versus the valuation, come back to that for me for a second, your price target. Because I would imagine, the valuation is like what's happened here the last 3 days. Earnings potential then, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so now we think estimates were conservative before the announcement. So we think this will kind of, we think EBITDA estimates will go up. We're projecting for 2.4 billion in EBITDA this year, 2024. And then, we think 2.5 to 2.7 next year. But we do think those are going to start to creep up now that you kind of have some sort of floor in for the Chinese economy. We think that maybe you'll see, those go up. But, right now shares of Wynn trade at, 8.5 times forward EBITDA, which is pretty low for them. They usually, before the pandemic, they traded around 12 times forward EBITDA. And then, the last 3 years, their average is 12.5. But that was because of some choppy earnings with COVID and some of the things, with China not reopening as soon. So, we think there's definitely upside. We think, estimates are conservative here, and multiples is low. So you might see, you've seen some upgrades, and I think, over the next few quarters, you're going to see EBITDA estimates go up for next year and maybe some multiple expansion as well.
Okay. What is a reasonable multiple if things are turning around here for Wynn?
I think there's no reason they can't trade at 12 times. I think once you get over 12 times forward EBITDA, it gets a little more risky, I guess, at that point. So we think 12 is probably a solid multiple for the company.
Okay. And does this generally depend too on like tourism, travel, or is there enough power from inside the Chinese economy?
It's mostly tourism and travel. Wynn's like we said, Wynn is roughly 50% China exposure. on their shares, and then they've got obviously their Las Vegas branch in Boston. So we think they're opening their UAE property in 2027, which we don't think that'll be priced in until at least at the earliest late next year. So yeah, I mean, we think right now it's kind of based on China, and as long as the U.S. stays stable, I think the upside comes from China.
Okay, Zach, love the take. Thanks for explaining it. Appreciate you being here Friday afternoon, getting us hyped about a little gambling.